guys, David is going to till this area here in the other direction. In this area, this is where the potatoes were. He's going to plant Sudan sorghum grass, which is a really fast growing grass that we're going to use as like a mulch and compost material. And we're going to stick that in other places as well. He's already put it in this area here that looks sort of bare. There is some there, but it hasn't come up very much. So I'll find another place where he has already put it so you can see it. So here we have 3 rows of Sudan sorghum grass. I will get closer so you can see. They grow very quickly and very tall. They'll be a great composting grass. So that's 3 rows of that here. And then this wider row here is okra. It's just coming up. So that'll be the okra there. Nice long row of okra.
All right, now we have to use our hand tools because it would be too much of a pain to switch the tractor attachment. There is a row bed maker thing that goes on that tractor, but I've never used it because by the time I hooked it up for these spaces, I mean, these spaces might seem like large gardens compared to, say, your normal suburban backyard. But when it comes to using a tractor, there is an economy of scale. If I was doing a whole acre, it would be worth turning around and shifting that thing. But when I'm just doing this, I can have this whole thing done before I even went and found the right attachment. Get up in the morning time, making biscuits. Get up in the middle of the noonday biscuits. Get up in the afternoon, making biscuits. There we go. Get up in the middle of the nighttime biscuits. Get up in the morning time, making biscuits. I'll put a link in the description to where I made the row maker thingy. It's super easy to make, and you could see all the pieces of it. I have them all labeled. Really, really simple, and it doubles as a thigh master. These are the Sudan sorghum seeds. I got these from Seven Springs Farm, which I found to be a really good source for a lot of organic amendments. It's where I got a lot of things, including my kelp. But I got these seeds from there too. And I'm going to sprinkle them. They're going to be gigantic like corn, but I'll have to thin later because nobody has time to place these things appropriately. And I don't really feel like crouching down and planting them every 12 inches. Also, I bought a 55-pound or probably a 50-pound bag. 50-pound bag of seeds. It's ridiculous. And I've only planted a few handfuls so far and covered way more area. So I actually got like probably 20 times the seed I actually could use. I think I had this idea I was going to plant this whole field with it. And that really hasn't happened. So if I throw a few extra seeds in here, I'm not going to feel bad about it. We should be able to get a nice stand. I'll space them out to about a foot apart later. There are seeders you can use. There is a seeder that was designed by Greg back at Easy Digging with Haas tools, and it attaches to the Haas wheel hoe. And it's a really neat seeder, but when I used it in sand, it didn't do particularly well because the sand is so fluffy that it tended not to turn the wheel as well as it should. And I talked with Greg about that, and he gave me some solutions for it. But unfortunately, he gave me the solutions about the same time that I left the country, and I left my seeder behind. and it's now with a friend of mine, and I haven't been able to get it back to try it. So I know that I have a seeder. It exists, so I can't buy a new one and play with it. But since I don't have it, I just can't buy another one. So I have to do it like this. Maybe until I die, because I don't know if I'm ever going to remember and get my life to line up where I get my seeder back. But I can't get another one. That would be wrong. This doesn't take that long anyways. Heck, by the time I set the seeder up, you know, whatever. This isn't bad. I could just wander around and talk to you. Talk to everyone. We could talk about our personal hang-ups. How we've planted seeds of bitterness and seeds of doubt when we should have been planting seeds of faith. Or I could just stop talking and we could go to the next scene. So I planted the whole thing and I still have this much left. I mean, the cup was like right here. So I probably only planted an inch of pink Flanagan's cup. I have too much of this stuff. And look at all that space. That's a good bit of space we planted. I think I got enough for like 3 million acres.
What you got?
We got Everglades tomatoes.
Beautiful.
You just gotta barely cover them. Just a little bit. And I don't mind them sitting down there in the bottom of these deep furrows. These furrows could have been more shallow, but I think that the water will sit in there longer, which is good because it has been dry. We did get a little rain last night, but that was the first rain in over a week. It was maybe only a half an inch. And I don't want to wait any longer to plant these, so I'm putting them in now while the soil is still a little moist. But just barely cover. Just a quarter to a half an inch probably.
No lie, I was at a party and we had like 300, this guy like literally brought like 300 heads of broccoli and like we were just passing them around. I ate like 15,000 florets and then I was just...
For the last day we got, you know, probably 2 inches of rain or so over the last 48 hours. That's perfect. So this Sudan sorghum should come up well. And then the next thing I want to do is, there are blank spots where I've been pulling out the brassicas and the spent early spring and late fall crops. And where there are empty spots, I'm going to plant these beans. Because we've got to get as much biomass as possible and as much life as possible on the soil because it's terrible. So I think there's actually, I planted multiple okra seeds and it took them a long time to get going. Now they're just starting to get going, but I think there's too many okras next to each other. Let's de-okrafy this a little bit. And now what we gotta do, just throw these here, right? And then kind of work them in a little bit. I love to do this sort of thing right after it rains, or right before it's going to rain, or as you've seen me, in the rain, to get it so I don't actually have to irrigate, because that's ideal. You know, if these beans can come up and find their own moisture and show up with the weather, that's the best. Notice too that these are just beans from the grocery store. They almost always come up just fine. So why spend more? You know, you could spend like $2 and plant a whole bed full of beans. And I'm really mostly just growing them for the nitrogen and for the life, not even to harvest them. If we manage to harvest some beans, that's great, but I don't care that much. I have a Caroline raspberry right here. Let's see, let's take one of these okras out of here, feed it to the Caroline. I really want these things to grow. It's a test. I had Caroline fruit for me in North Florida, so I figured it'd probably do okay here. Now, Another benefit of throwing down the beans like this or having any kind of a cover crop is that it fills in the spaces where weeds would normally grow. So it's kind of acting like your ground cover. It's adding nitrogen to the soil. And you may think, well, a bean doesn't really make a lot over the top of the surface of the ground. I mean, it's like there's not a lot of plant really. I mean, how much compost does that actually make? But there's a lot going on beneath the surface of the ground, you know, that you're not seeing. There's often at least as much root beneath the ground as there is over the top, you know, as much as there is plant over the top. So you've got this life going down there, you've got it making sugars, you've got it fixing nitrogen beneath the soil, it's suppressing weeds, it's adding organic matter below the ground. When you chop the top of it, it rots down, that's cool. And then underneath it's better. And you don't have to do this with your hands either. I like to always put my hands in the dirt. I know somebody's like, oh my gosh, I can't stand that. My fingernails will be dirty. I spent money on these fingernails. No, don't worry about that. But if I had my fork, I could easily just do this with a fork or with a rake. But I was digging elderberries at a friend's house and I forgot the fork. So we don't have the fork, so we're just gonna do it with our hands. But cover cropping, that's the way to get lots of compost in your ground. So between the Sudan sorghum, we did rye, we did mustards, we've done all kinds of things on this property. We've got to get life on this soil. It's really lacking organic matter. We're talking less than 2%, and there's not a lot of nutrition in the soil. This is gonna help a lot with tilth, with fertility, with making it easier for the plants to access what they need in the ground. So as we cover crop through the year, if we've got a gap, we're gonna try and put cover on it somewhere. And I recommend you do the same thing in your garden. It's way easier to crop in the garden with green manures and just plant things and chop it and drop it or till it under or whatever else than it is to make a big compost pile and mix it all up, haul all the materials, bring it back, haul it over, bring it back, or even to go and get materials from offsite, which I don't usually trust anyways. So that's what we're doing right here. And as the stuff grows, I'll let you see it. And be sure to check out my book, Compost Everything, The Good Guide to Extreme Composting, where I talk a lot about different ways to get compost on your property that are way simpler than the sort of thing that you'll read at agricultural extension guides. Anyhow, catch you all next time. And until then, may your thumbs always be green.
I went to see David the Good. We listened to Portishead and drank spiced rum.